So I've been speaking to Ali Bracken about the fast-moving story about Gerry the Monk Hutch, who got bail this week in Lanzarote. Eamon, are you with us? Thoughts? Because, I wanted to ask you guys. So his bail, like, it appears that the court in Lanzarote have granted him bail on the basis that he's standing for election. So this is no longer just, a story that people can say is, a bit of a flyer. I mean, he is now put before the courts in Lanzarote that he wants out because he needs to come home to campaign.
Yeah, and obviously that was part of the conditions that he was allowed travel to Ireland, even though he's wanted.
So we're going to see him home over the next few days?
Well, we absolutely will, I'd say. The reality is that I suppose maybe some people thought it sounds like a bit of a flyer, but he absolutely intended to run. I personally would have thought that something like this would have put him off, but it's amazing to see that 8% of people in an opinion poll in the Sunday Indo this weekend said they would vote for him. So
that's what I thought. They were saying that was very little, but I actually
8%. I mean, 8%.
8% of how many?
Well, 8% of the whole vote.
Yeah, but,
the whole voters.
What is the population of that?
Well, I mean,
Dublin North Central, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if you get 8% of the vote, you will be in the running for a seat. If you consider that there's going to be.
Depending on where the transfers come from.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, 8% would be enough. I mean, something like 14, 15% would tend to be enough to get you more or less elected, So it's not far off. Well, he's in, and that's an overall poll of the whole country.
Yeah,
obviously,
these polls obviously aren't exactly accurate, but gives.
Okay, Donald Trump, yeah. But
as we wait, What do you think, Eamon? I mean, you've been writing about him for your entire journalistic career. Did you ever think you'd be in a position that you'd be talking about the possibility of Gerry Hutch hitting the Dail?
I hadn't particularly thought of that, but we have had previous in this regard. If you remember, Kelly, who was a mayor in Limerick, was
Mick Kelly, was it?
Yeah, and
I interviewed him.
Yeah, and he was involved in violent crime in the city. He was a well-known figure. I suppose was elected on the idea of he was being a Robin Hood. Now, I don't think he was.
Very true.
In terms of criminal capability, he wasn't anywhere near in the league of Gerry Hutch. But so it's not beyond the pale of possibility.
Because I remember many years ago, I was asked to go to this sort of black tie ball thing down in Limerick with this guy, and I went along, but I had pre-arranged to meet your man Mick Kelly in the lobby of the place to do a quick chat with him, and which I thought was perfectly normal. Perfectly normal, just have a quick chat before we go into this black tie ball.
Yeah.
But it didn't go down very well.
No.
This guy was like, who are you meeting? Sorry? You're meeting a mayor? You're bringing him here? So my normal isn't other people's normal.
No, but you have to so with Gerry Hutch, so he wants to run. We know. That's on the record. So that was part of his bail conditions that was put in before the court by his solicitor. So does he want to be elected as well, or does he have a reason for running?
You just think he wants to thwart the system, perhaps?
Well, I'm just not sure.
MacDonald.
I'm just not sure. And actually, in that opinion poll, it's 8% of people said they might vote for him. It was much higher, which Sinn Féin voters, I think went up to 20%. Or no, sorry, it's 20% with independents, and a bit higher again with Sinn Féin. So there are potential votes for him there.
Yeah.
Well, it was 88% said they wouldn't vote for him. So
80%, but
that kind of puts him at 12% max.
88 and 8.
Yeah,
where's the other percent?
No, 8.
You're just not voting.
No. I mean, there's 5% undecided or whatever.
Yeah.
So people,
and it could be the swing state people.
But it was the information that it was used in his argument to get bail was that he wanted to stand election. Came from the Canary Islands High Court press, and they actually, it actually said it would do irreparable damage to his right to passive suffrage, which remains intact. So I presume that's so he can go and stand.
Yeah, well, this is the same argument actually Donald Trump was was making during his court cases is that,
You're not
you can't, I'm not, but it's the same idea that the courts should be reluctant to interfere with the, the democratic process, shouldn't be taking stances that would impede the democratic process. So, look, I don't know. I think there's the other issue, actually, if he really wants to be elected. I mean, since we first talked about it, Claire Daly has announced that she's running in that constituency. Like, Claire Daly is obviously a former Socialist Party TD and MEP, and she would pick up, you would think, some of the same votes that Gerry Hutch might have gone for.
So they'll go,
some of the
head.
Well, I would think so.
Would she ever have thought in her political career she'd be in that position, perhaps?
No, I wouldn't have thought she would have considered that.
So what are we looking at? So the election is possibly going to be announced.
Well, I think it's
this week.
Yeah, but they think they've effectively said it will be. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they just have to get through legislation first, and
I
think Simon Harris said something along. We're not really on our normal territory. Are we talking about politics?
No, and then everyone slags you off. Not.
He did say that they'd be making it known, but I mean it's more or less it's been leaked so often in so many poll cores at this stage that it's the 29th of November, and everyone's going to be very surprised if it's not the 29th of November.
Okay,
but they have to give 3 weeks run-in effectively.
Yes. So once the election is announced, candidates
then put their names forward.
So by next week, he's going to have to put up or shut up.
Yes, so he'll have to, and I presume he has to
put his name forward or not.
Sign his own forms, get his nominations, put it in, and it's anybody can run, and often anybody does. So there'll always be a couple of names at the end of that constituency with 10, 20 votes.
I think 500 quid though, and you can
pay 500 quid, or you can get 30.
X amount to get your deposit back there.
Yeah, but he's put forward his 100 grand to get bail, so I'm sure he can afford the 500.
But I'd say, I said to you before, you either get that or you get 30 signatures from your electorate. I mean, if you can't get 30, you're not really going to get far in your whole campaign, are you? Surely,
no. So then
30 signatures.
So then the question comes, right? If he really wants to be elected, you're going to have to work for it. So you're going to have to. He might get his votes in amongst the people he knows in the North Inner City. Is he going to start calling into houses in Phibsborough? Is he going to start doing interviews with, RTE and News Talk? Is he
Maybe he might do an interview with Crime World, who knows?
He might. Is he going to appear at, there's local community meetings about putting up extra bollards and the things? Is he going to do all of that?
Well, he's going to have to come up with some sort of a policy. What are his policies? What is he running for?
Yeah. I mean, actually, if you want my cynical opinion...
Is it on housing? Is it on what,
My cynical opinion be that'd be less important than just, appearing and... Like, is he going to do social media videos? Is he going to get on TikTok like what's his name? Simon Harris. It's amazing.
But he's already got, in a way, you think about American politics, of course, and how many times have we heard that a lot of voters go out and they just see a familiar face.
100%.
And they know a familiar name and they vote on that basis.
Yeah.
It's like sort of picking the name of a horse because you like the name of the horse or the colours it's riding in or whatever. So it's something familiar to you or you like or whatever.
Well, his name recognition.
And his name recognition there. Face recognition there. He might need to grow his beard again.
That beard will definitely be a better picture.
I think that Treasure Island look is maybe more...
It was interesting, actually, Malachy Steenson, who would be an anti-immigration sort of candidate who would come from the North Inner City as well, would have been involved in Republican politics initially and has now become, I suppose, most synonymous with an anti-immigration stance or an anti-asylum seeker stance. He may quibble with some of those terms, but I saw him having a kind of uncharitable words towards Gerry Hutch. So there are big rivals in that constituency.
Big egos, yeah.
Big personalities. Pascal Donoghue.
As a matter of interest, Eamon, just from doing the desk and stuff, how do you feel it's going to go with reporting of his antics, his policies, whatever we'll call them? How will that go in the broadsheet media? Is it going to get equal status, or is there going to be a bit of snobbery when it comes to Gerry Hutch running for the Dáil?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's snobbery, but it would certainly, he'd be seen as a sideshow. I don't think any of the political cars would consider him having any chance whatsoever. And I don't think they're necessarily underestimating him in that sense, but like they're kind of crunching the numbers. And, and as Niall mentioned, is he going to start turning up in other parts, not just the stronghold area of the immediate north in the city, but, going out into Phibsborough? I think it's about 50,000 people is generally the amount of people that are represented in kind of a seat of that
50,000.
About that, yeah. So, and I mean, and you'll probably have a turnout of whatever, at best 60%. So,
well, look, I mean, if you look at it in the last election, Pascal Donoghue got 4,100 first preference votes, and that was enough to see him sort of easily elected after transfers. So
there's a 50,000 electorate, but that's not all voters, obviously, because there'd be people
that would be
that's
the
voting
electorate.
population.
But the electorate, like the last time,
that's 8%.
That's it's that's
is
8.
It?
No, the 8% is a national poll, so 8% of people polled nationally. If you got 8% of that,
sorry, it was just under 62,000. Sorry, it's just found it here.
Laptop, just so 8% of 6.
Yeah, Mary Lou got 11,000 first preferences.
Yeah, she did really well. She's not going to do so well.
She's no way going to get that again.
But the thing to look at, if you look at Gary Gannon, who he was kind of running in at 5th place with 2,900, but he got through on transfers. So you kind of need to be hitting at least somewhere in that region, then close to 3,000 to have any chance of staying in the race.
Yeah,
I mean, the likes of Christy Burke, I suppose, who ran as an independent.
And do we know if Christy Burke is running?
No, I mean, you don't know anybody is theory running yet.
Because imagine if Christy Burke didn't run.
There'll be some crossover, considering
Gerry Hutch could
base,
possibly guaranteed some of that.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
It is a
1,500.
lot. It is a lot.
Is that first preference?
And again, I mean, that was Christy Burke and Joe Costello then as well.
Joe Costello is gone. Joe Costello isn't going to run, and instead running would be Marie Sherlock would be running in that constituency.
Who's a high profile enough herself.
She would.
But
she would take very different votes than Joe Costello, who Joe Costello would have taken a lot of votes in the North Inner City. He would have had a very strong base. Marie Sherlock would have a much more Phibsborough kind of Cabra sort of base than Joe Costello.
Sandal wearing, as you call them.
Well, something like that.
Oat milk latte drinking.
But we know Gerry Hutch isn't completely stupid either, and I'm sure he's had probably a rather better crack at the numbers than we just have, for at least a bit longer to figure out, does he have a kind of a path to victory? And can he get enough transfers? Can he stay in the race long enough to get enough transfers off one of the bigger fish?
And what do you think about this arrest? I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of put out that he's considering going for the Dáil. He's arrested within days. He has no chance to make any comment on that story. We know it's not a conspiracy. Okay, there is a long-term investigation going on in Spain. The timing is pretty spectacular, but nonetheless, he's in handcuffs within days of this announcement. It looks, if you were a bit of a conspiracy theorist, it would look as if people are trying to shut him down, keep him away from politics and teach him a lesson, really. But.
Yeah. And it's probably a useful narrative for him.
Well, that's he could
catch, he could catch some votes from people who are kind of saying, well, this guy's anti-establishment, I'm going to vote for him. He's proper Irish.
In a way, isn't it useful that happened for him?
Yeah, I mean, it can work either way.
You can work it either way, yeah. In Phibsborough, maybe it would work against him. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it could be. I mean, I think it would. I mean, if you look at Gary Gannon, who was elected with a couple of thousand first preferences, but he picked up transfers from Mary Lou, Pascal Donoghue, from everywhere. And that's what gets him over the line. So if Gerry Hutch is really serious about getting over the line, he needs to pick up all of those transfers from everybody. Now, if he's not serious about running or getting over the line, and he's wants to make a stand and run for election and send some sort of message to somebody, it's a different matter. But if he wants to pick up those types of transfers, he's going to have to put out an image publicly, even whether, where he softens his image and drags in some of those voters.
I would think if he's going for it, he wants into the Dáil. I don't think he's going for it.
But then he's going to have to do interviews, and he's going to have to explain himself in a way that reaches beyond his natural constituency, because there's probably not enough of them to get him elected in of itself. There's enough possibly to get him far more competitive, I believe, than the political correspondents would think. I think there's enough first preferences there to get him right into the mix. But whether those come then, and remember, there are people, we have this very clear sort of moral stance or whatever you want to look at it. But there's a lot of people who do like to vote against the establishment one way or another.
And there is a kind of an unpredictable factor in this election, in that there was a huge swing to Sinn Féin the last time out. Mary Lou got 35% of the vote in Dublin, in Dublin North Central. So there's every possibility, the way Sinn Féin are polling, she's only going to get half that.
Yeah.
So that's almost guaranteed she'll get down to 6,000.
So that's 5,000 votes that are now up for grabs.
And
where are they going to go? And some of them were protest votes.
Oh no, they're definitely anti-establishment vote. I mean, they're not going to Fine Gael. I mean, people were voting for Sinn Féin. Now, some of them are going to go for maybe to all sorts of places. I mean, Sinn Féin have been hammered on immigration, for example, and some of those anti-establishment votes that went to Sinn Féin will go to various parties like that. You know, anti-immigration parties got something like 3 or 4 or 5% in most constituencies.
But even, sorry, to go back to the 8% figure from the Sunday Independent poll, while again it does sound like it's an uphill struggle, just looking here from our immediate research, Gary Gannon is down as 9.3%.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in his first preferences. So it's, you know, okay, it's
not a million miles.
It's not a million miles away. I mean, it's still.
But he was so transfer friendly, and that's to win. You know, I'm a bit skeptical that it's all about winning, but
it's just, to me, it's. I just think we're going to be busy with politics in the crime world, so we need to brush up our little skills on all that.
We may actually do our research before we start talking about it next time.
It says we actually
sounded very
instead of I wonder, but yes, I do think that we could be looking at an election where crime world is as relevant.
Well,
as
I'll say this
right,
about, you know, in asking, but I think the political establishment will not take kindly to Gerry Hutch running, if you ask me. So I'm not saying...
And they won't like if you know...
If he's in the mix.
They won't like it.
No. And I don't... Like, you know, they won't like that.
The Gardaí will not like it either.
No.
And, you know, the pillars of the state will not like it.
And do not like it. I mean, already. So that's not to say now that you know, Fine Gael gave a tinkle to their Spanish counterparts and said arrest them.
No.
I'm not saying that, but
I know I know sort of he has told people that he is irritated, angered by the way the heavy-handed approach to his own home in Clontarf, and that has kind of spurred him ever onwards. But I mean, that was quite a heavy raid on that house. We don't know, I suppose, was it just to seize documents, or did they believe there was something else there, that they needed an armed response unit? The emergency response unit were there. He's not even in the country.
Well, that's one perspective. I mean, the other perspective is that, you know, Gerry Hutch's connections with people in the underworld.
I totally understand that.
And that you don't go in there and knock on the door, that you have to take every precaution. And
I don't know whether they've ever taken those precautions before in that house, to be perfectly honest with you. I do know that there have been Gardaí in and out of that estate and in and out of that house over the years repeatedly without any of those said precautions, because it certainly hadn't been seen as, you know, a house that would be high risk like that, despite the fact that it would be his house. And he had been under surveillance and watched going to the airport. They knew he was out of the country. I think, you know, it was, whatever reason, the Criminal Assets Bureau were there, the Emergency Response Unit were there, others were there. There's possibly much more high-end investigations going on behind the scenes here, absolutely. But one way or another, that heavy-handed approach has definitely, in his mind, doubled down his efforts.
Yeah, well,
you know,
that may be so. I mean, I'm sure there's another perspective, I suppose, as well.
It'd be interesting to see if people in the North Inner City who had to live through, you know, the worst of the feuding with, you know, armed police, like, you know, we saw the checkpoints near the office and all the rest, and, you know, there was shootings carried out in broad daylight. There were people getting killed on the streets. And, you know, and it was a falling out it was a civil war between two factions of the same gang, and it was called the Hutch and Kinahan factions. And, okay, certainly in the trial over the Regency murder, for which Gerry Hutch was acquitted, it was depicted that very much that, you know, he was kind of seen as a figure who other members of the family had turned to when they were after biting off more than they can chew. And it was kind of seen as being apart from this, you know, drug dealing gang, and he wasn't seen as part of that. whether people in the north inner city who kind of are living the truth of it, whether they like translate that into votes for him or votes for someone else, it'll be interesting to see.
Gerry Hutch genuinely is popular, I think, in the north inner city. Now, not with everybody, but there is a popularity there that's not manufactured. So, look, yeah, it's fascinating. It's again another unpredictable twist to the whole thing as well. That it looked like it was the burgeoning political career was all over, and now it's back on.
Yeah.
Never.
What did they say about what did they say about politics? Something about a day in politics.
The wrong podcast.
Am I? The way they say you can never predict whatever. A day in politics is like a kind of a lifetime sort of thing.
It's bleeding boring, politics.
Is it bleeding boring? Do you find it bleeding boring?
Right to me as a.
Imagine you went on that sort of like that was your manifesto for your.
Well, it was described to me.
Politics is bleeding boring.
One former senator, a chap I knew from my rugby days. But he likened it as a blood sport, and it is brutally tough. Talk about getting found out. You think you're popular and you think you're doing the right thing, and nobody turns up to vote for you.
Horrendous.
It's slightly crushing.
Absolutely. You definitely need a thick skin for it anyway.
Although I imagine Gerry Hutch qualifies in the thick skin category, so I wouldn't say it would bother him too much either way.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, we might get those T-shirts printed so as we can wear them on here for the next while. Politics is bleeding boring.
Tune into Crime World instead.
Right, okay. Well, let's see what happens in 24 hours.
Thanks, Nicola.